Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, dear students. Today we are going to talk about the past simple passive voice. However, we cannot start talking about the past simple passive voice unless we refer to the past simple active voice and we see the differences. Let's have a look at it together. When we look at the first picture here, what do we see? We see that a young girl, she painted the wall yesterday. So our main interest is put on the agent or the subject of this sentence, in this case she, then the action, painted, and finally the object, the wall. That would be the past simple active form. She painted the wall last week. However, if we take another look at the picture, the first thing we see is the object, the wall, and then we see what has been done to the object or the action. Was painted by the agent is something that we are not interested with. So, let's put it together. The past simple active voice would be she painted a wall last week, and therefore she, as the subject or the agent of this sentence or this action actually, is in our interest. However, the passive voice sentence would be the wall was painted, and our main interest here is put on the wall that was painted last week. Let's have a look at the second picture. What do we see here? We see agent, action, and object. Using the past simple active voice, the sentence would be, she didn't feed the cat yesterday. And our interest is put both on the agent or subject of the sentence as well as the action and the object. But if our main interest is on the object and the action, which in this case was not done, then we would use the passive sentence, the passive voice. The cat wasn't fed yesterday. So, what have we learned? We have learned that the same thing can be said through the active or passive voice. We don't change the meaning of the sentence. The only thing we change is actually our main interest, whether it's on the subject of the sentence or object and action as well. Now, why don't you pause this video for a while, look at the pictures and sentences, and try to answer which ones are active voice and which ones are the passive voice. And what would be your answer? What would be the main difference between active and passive voice sentences in past simple tense? Now, let's see if we have the same answer. First, let's have a look at the past simple active voice and its formation. What do we have? They made a mess yesterday. A typical active voice sentence in the past simple tense. We have subject or agent, in this case they, verb, made in past simple, object, a mess, and yesterday, well, in this case, we will just refer to this as other words. But when we look at the past simple passive voice form, what do we see? We see object, verb, and other words. And what's missing? Subject or the agent of the action is missing. Why? It's because we probably don't know who the agent was, and we don't have relevant information, or simply put, the agent or the subject is not relevant in this case. And now, to make a long story short, we are simply going to answer the following question. When do we use the passive voice? The passive voice is used to talk about an action without referring to the agent or subject due to the irrelevancy or lack of information on the agent. When we look at the picture here as an example, what do we see? We see a messy room and we don't have any relevant information about the agent or subject who has or have done this unfortunate action. So, describing this picture, the use of past simple passive voice would be the best option for us. The mess was made. And the following question, how do we form the past simple passive voice, has already been answered through the examples we have just seen. However, let's put it all together. How do we form the past simple passive voice? The past simple passive voice is formed by the use of past forms of verb to be, which we know are was and were. Pay attention to the green letters. And the past participle of the main verb. In this case, we talk about irregular verbs which are taken from the third column. For example, send, sent, sent, see, saw, seen, and adding d, ed, ied at the end of the irregular verb. Paint, painted, visit, visited, and we already know that the past participle form of the regular verb is actually the same as the past simple form of the same verb. Now, let's look at the example. I was told some bad news yesterday. I was visited by a friend yesterday. You were told some bad news, or you were visited. She was told good news yesterday, or she was visited. So we see how we form the past simple passive voice. And please don't forget, as you can already see that the past simple passive voice is formed with the use of helping verb to be in the past tense, was or were, and the past participle of the main verb. Don't forget that we form questions and negative sentences applying the rules for the helping verbs. So the question would be, were you told anything yesterday? Were you visited yesterday? And the negative would be, you were not told anything yesterday. You were not visited yesterday. But as we have been dealing with English for many years and many months, we already know how to use helping verb in positive, negative, and question forms. That would be all. I truly hope you enjoy this lesson.